Hey guys, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you had a good day with food, family, and football. Wanted to give you a 2023 mock draft to chew on a little bit. Let me know down in the comments what I got wrong or maybe what I got right. Like and subscribe, and let's just jump right into it. So the Houston Texans are going to be up first. I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point. They're probably going to go quarterback because Davis Mills has just been benched. To me, Bryce Young has passed C.J. Stroud as the number one quarterback on the board, although they've both shown to be pedestrian at times this year. So I don't know if they're the surefire locks that they were considered at one point. The Panthers also need a quarterback. Baker Mayfield's not it. Sam Darnold's clearly not it. And the experiment with Walker didn't work. C.J. Stroud is there. That's where they're going to go. Chicago's up. Just did a video. Justin Fields is the long-term answer, at least for the next couple years. They've got to get him offensive line help. I think at the end of the season they won't be picking number 3. But, Skoronski could be the pick here. If you go best player available, it's Will Anderson. And, they could use a pass rush. Everybody could use more pass rush. So to me, it's between those two players. At 3, I tend to lean Will Anderson just for the value. But if they drop beyond 5, Will Anderson probably won't be there. And I think Skoronski's the pick. But since they're here at 3 in this mock, we're going to go with Will Anderson. The Raiders are up. They need help on defense and on offense. They've had a lot of injuries on offense, so I think some of that will fix itself next year. Although Derek Carr has been considered on the hot seat, and he might not be there next year. But until he is officially gone, I'm not going to draft a quarterback in this situation. Jalen Carter or Myles Murphy makes the most sense. I think that their pass rush hasn't been as good as they expected it to be. Max Crosby's been fine, but he's just not getting much help from Chandler Jones or anyone else. So I'm going to go Myles Murphy here. The Seahawks are up. They need help on defense as well. They've got great offensive weapons. They've got, looks like their quarterback of the future. So, where at this time last year I was thinking Will Levis might be a good pick. I can't pick him here. They've drafted well in the secondary as of late. I think defensive line is the way to go. Jalen Carter's the best player on the board. So that's where we're going to go. Detroit Lions, they're up. I think they have a decent secondary. They definitely need help at linebacker and defensive line. Their offense is really good, and they're going to just get better when Williams joins the team. So for me, I'm going to go with Brian Bresee, just because Kelly Ringo is really good, but they've got 2 solid corners already, and you want to address the greater need at this point in the draft. The Texans are back up. I think you either go protection or you go with a weapon. So it's either Quentin Johnston or Peter Skoronski. I think, especially with the way Brandon Cook's situation is, he's going to end up on a different team next year in one way or another. So I'm going to go Quentin Johnston right here, wide receiver out of TCU. Pittsburgh is up. They are probably going to have to go with Kenny Pickett for another year. They traded away Claypool, so they might want another wide receiver. They could use some offensive line help, and their defense hasn't been what we're used to expecting from a Steelers defense. However, I'm going to go with Skoronski. I think it's the greatest need for them and, good value. Jaguars are up. They're a lot better than I expected them to be this year. They've got some solid weapons, but could use another top-tier wide receiver. The Jones brothers, as I've been calling them, are fine, but you don't want to have to play both of them in starting roles. Jordan Addison's available. Jackson Smith and Jigba's available. They both would make sense here. Defense, they could use some help in the secondary, and they need some offensive line help. So, I'm using NFL mock draft database today. I try to switch it up every time just to get a feel for which ones I like the most. But they're suggesting Addison or jumping to Paris Johnson for offensive line help based on their needs. I don't know. I think their weapons are decent enough, and they use ATN enough. I think Paris Johnson's a good move here. Go offensive tackle. The Eagles still ending up with a top 10 pick, even though they've had such a good season. That GM is killing it. So they need secondary. They need pass rush. They need defense. Their offense has been great. So Kelly Ringo's sat on the board long enough. I don't know that he'll make it here in the real draft, but that's where he is, and he's going to go at number 10 to Philly. Which would upset the Cardinals because they also need secondary help. They need offensive line help. I think they may end up drafting a quarterback in the next year or two. But it won't be this one. This is also, we're getting into the area where people might be trading up for Will Levis to get ahead of the next pick, but I'm not doing trades yet. It's way too early for that. So we're going to go secondary, and Joey Porter or Cam Smith, if they're basically the same, I'm going to be honest, I tend to just go, I'm always going to go SEC, even though South Carolina's not elite. I just tend to go SEC because they're going up against greater competition week in and week out. So we're going to go with Cam Smith out of South Carolina. The Packers are up. Aaron Rodgers has said he's probably retiring. I think Will Levis ends up in Green Bay. And it's a great spot for him as long as they can get him some help, some talent on the outside. So Detroit is right back up. We gave them a defensive line help in the first pick. If you look, it says they need a quarterback. I think Jared Goff is good for them. I think he brings leadership. I think he's consistent, doesn't turn the ball over that much. So they're putting up good numbers. They've got to keep helping the defense. So Joey Porter slides to them, and he's going to be the pick. The Colts are up. They do need a quarterback. They've been going through their roster, trying to figure out what the quarterback situation is. Hendon Hooker just got towards ACL, so I think he's going to keep dropping. I don't think there's a quarterback worth taking this high, so I think they're going to just go with best player available. You look at their wide receivers. They've got Michael Pittman. They've got Paris Campbell. Alec Pierce has been solid. It depends on how high the grade is on Jordan Addison. They've got Jonathan Taylor. They're not taking Robinson. They could use a tight end. Michael Mayer's been solid, and you're not looking at another first-round graded tight end. D-line's okay. Offensive line help is definitely needed. This would be a solid place for them to probably trade back if this is how things went. But I'm gonna go ahead and give them the tight end. I'm gonna give them Michael Mayer. I know that they've got Mo Alley Cox, and I know there's another one I'm forgetting, but Mayer's a solid first round graded tight end. He's gonna be able to block and catch some passes. So moving on to the Falcons, they traded away Calvin Ridley. They've got Desmond Ridder, who they haven't gone to yet, so they can't draft another quarterback in this scenario. I think they need to go with a wide receiver. It's either Addison or Smith and Jigba. They've got Drake London out there. Ohio State wide receivers have just been absolutely killing it in the league. I'm going to go with Smith and Jigba, and Addison will probably be off the board shortly. Maybe he gets to stay in California. I think that's a good pick for the Chargers. Keenan Allen's just been injured nonstop. Mike Williams just got paid, so I think it's a good option to get another wide receiver. We're going to go Jordan Addison right here. This is my favorite team. They need a quarterback, but as we've just said, this is not the spot it'll happen. If they're sticking at 17, and I think the way things are going, they may end up later because there's a chance they sneak into the playoffs. They're not going to take a running back. They need offensive line help. They need a strong offensive tackle. They've been okay, but they've got to protect whoever ends up back there. So I'm going to go with Broderick Jones. Similar situation. I tend to lean SEC. They just tend to be better pros. I could be wrong. Fashanu could be the best tackle in the draft, but I'm gonna go with Jones out of Georgia. So the Jets are up. They also need a quarterback. They just bitched Zach Wilson. I was way off on him. They were winning in spite of him and not because of him, and he showed that his maturity's not there. They also need to protect whoever comes in next. They've got Breece Hall, so it's not going to be Robinson. I'm very curious where I'm going to end up putting him. I haven't planned ahead on that. Defense has been phenomenal, so I think they're going to have to go offense, and Fashanu's there. They get some protection for whoever ends up at quarterback. Tampa Bay, what does Tom Brady do? He has said that he doesn't see himself retiring anytime soon, so I think they're going to continue to roll with him. Their defense hasn't been exactly what they needed. They need interior offensive line because injury and aging, but no one's really graded very highly in those spots, it tends to be the case. So I'm gonna go with defense, and as it's suggesting, let's look at who else we have at edge rusher. Nolan Smith out of Georgia is really good, but Foskey. We're gonna go with Foskey out of Notre Dame. Give them some more pass rush, and see what they can do with that. The Broncos, such a weird situation. Like, they're gonna have to fire Hackett and get a new coach in there. I just don't think that he's the right one for the talent that they have. They've got enough talent on offense that they should be putting up points. I don't understand what's going on over there. So they'll go with defense most likely. But this is a really interesting spot for Robinson. You know, do they believe in his name is escaping me, the running back out of North Carolina for that got injured this year? It'll come back to me. Javonte Williams, thank you. I think they stick with him. It's still, I know Robinson is a generational, like he gives Saquon Barkley vibes, but it's too high to draft when you've got Javonte Williams. Let me look down the line a little bit. I think I see some teams that might spend that draft capital on Robinson coming up in a little while. So we're gonna go defense, and I'm gonna give them Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. Give them a strong linebacker that can lead that defense. Seahawks are back up, and they are in a great place to just draft need or best player available. That doesn't matter. Robinson, it's possible here, but Kenneth Walker's been really, really good for them at a low cost, low draft capital, and I think they might just continue to roll with him. They don't need wide receiver. They've got a good secondary. They've drafted interior defensive line. Edge rusher makes some sense. Do they draft a quarterback that they want to grow? I don't know. Probably not yet. Not in the first round. That doesn't show confidence in Geno Smith. Let's go ahead and go Nolan Smith, edge rusher out of Georgia, and that gives them two really young pieces on the defensive line going forward. Just a second. All right. So the Patriots are up. They need a quarterback, I think. I don't know. Depends on who you ask. I don't know if they've got their answer. But they definitely need talent at wide receiver. And I think that's where they go. I'm just going to jump straight to it. And they're going to get Keyshawn Boot out of LSU. LSU and Ohio State have been wide receiver U lately. So they might have a diamond in the rough right there that's going to put up big numbers quickly. Bengals are up. They continue to need offensive line help, even though they spent all that money in offense and free agency last year. They need some secondary help, and they've got, let's see here, is there any offensive linemen? No, not graded by them very highly. So I think it's right here. We're going to go Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, give them secondary help. Buffalo is up, and this to me is where Robinson doesn't make it beyond. I know Devin Singletary has been solid, but just pure talent-wise, he's not anything close to Robinson, and that's where he's going. I think that would have been a place before Buffalo where people might trade up for him if he's still there. Pure talent-wise, he's a top 15 guy, no doubt. But the running back position, you find late-round guys that end up putting up big numbers all the time. So I don't know that people spend that draft capital. I could be wrong. Baltimore is up. They need wide receivers, but we're not at a place where that's a thing. I think that they could go just best player available. They're not going to take a safety. They could take Gibbs out of Alabama. They've got a stable of running backs, but none of them can stay healthy for long. It might be time to just reset the deck. I think they are at a spot where if Robinson dropped, they would 100% take him. Clark Phillips, corner out of Utah, is a possibility. They also need to figure out what the heck they're going to do with Lamar Jackson. I think they're going to end up having to franchise him, and we'll see if he will play on that. He seems like the guy that would sit out for a full year and say no. But we'll see what happens. I am going to go – I like the Gibbs pick. It allows them to cut loose some loose ends and focus on a guy that can really fit in their offensive scheme. Let me know. That's the first one where I've really been like, I don't know, but I like that pick if I'm a Ravens fan. So the Titans are up. They are still trying to figure out if they're going to move on to Malik Willis. I think Ryan Tannehill's still the better player, but give it a full off season. Maybe you give Willis all the first team reps and that changes. They could use some edge rush help to help out Simmons on the inside. They need some offensive line help to protect, but as we've already looked, this doesn't appear to be a top-heavy offensive line draft. So we've got defensive line and secondary that's really available where we are. I really love B.J. Ojulari, and maybe that's my SEC bias coming out, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them Ojulari. He is a strong edge rusher out of LSU, and that just tends to do well in the NFL. So Dallas is up. I'm going to be curious if they sign OBJ. If they don't, then wide receiver will be something that they would probably consider just because Jerry Jones loves wide receivers. They need secondary help, but their defense is solid. I think that if there was a stud tight end, that might be something that they look at. But Clark Phillips, best corner on the board. I think you just take him and you roll on. Giants are up. So here's another situation with do they have the quarterback of the future? I don't think so. But if there's not one that makes sense, then they might just keep moving. We've also approached the area of the first round where people that need quarterbacks still that have already picked in the first round might trade up just to get that fifth-year option that comes with a first-round draft pick. So Hendon Hooker is graded that way. If he wasn't hurt, I would probably take him here or maybe someone a little earlier. But he is injured, which is a factor. I really like Anthony Richardson. I think that he could be someone that's a star. He's just incredibly athletic and makes good plays off script. If I'm the Giants, you kind of got to go quarterback either now or figure out a way to trade up in the second round. You need wide receiver help, but similar situation. No one really graded correctly here. This might be a spot where they want to trade down. But as I said before, I'm not doing trade downs. I'm going to take Hendon Hooker because they do have Daniel Jones, and he can play long enough for Hendon Hooker to get recovered and come back. The Vikings, they need defensive help more than anything. And edge rush, we've got a 3-pack right here. Let's go Jared Verse out of Florida State. The Chiefs are up, as always. They're just going to take the best player available. They draft really well. Tyree Wilson falling this far was probably unfair to him. Let's give him Tyree Wilson, and they're going to figure out how to make that work. Eagles are back up. We've already given them a corner. Edge rush makes sense. Let's give them Andre Carter out of Army. And to finish out the first round, you've got the Texans. They need edge rush as well, and we will give them Anudike Uzoma out of Kansas State. So your draft is complete. That is it. Oh, I get draft grades. Very nice, very nice. Let me see if I can see the whole thing. Like I said, I haven't done this one before. So, no. But that's going to do it. Let me know down in the comments which picks I got right, which ones I got wrong. You guys tend to be louder about the ones I got wrong, which I'm completely open to. But thanks so much for being here. We crossed 500 subscribers. If you were still watching at this point, please subscribe. Help us get to 1,000. That's going to be the next goal. And once we do, I'm going to do a giveaway. So stay tuned. But thanks again, and I'll see y'all next time.